This story is about children of color during quarantine. But in light of what's happening now all over the country, I want to tell all the beautiful black boys, I see you. I see your black boy magic. I see you. I see that you aren't safe. I see you. I know that your imaginations will bring us stories of peace, and that with your light, things will get better. This is for all children of color. I see you all, and may all your imaginations bring you the power of conviction and change. The amazing imagination of Cecilia and JaSiyah. Once upon a time, there were two children who lived next door to each other, went to the same school, and lived with their grandmothers, but they never spoke. Cecilia's parents were Guatemalan, and JaSiyah's parents had lived in Atlanta their whole lives. They would cross paths during the school day, but were not in the same grade or class. One was in Mr. Day's 3rd grade class, and the other in Señorita Jimenez's 2nd grade class. They were in school on Thursday, and it was a normal day. Recess was too short. They ate lunch in a rush and didn't get to go to the bathroom until dismissal. Then suddenly, school was over. That evening at 4:45 p.m., their grandmothers got a call. School is canceled tomorrow due to the novel coronavirus. The automaton on the phone shouted. They were excited about not having to get up early the next day. However, as time passed, the same message was sent. School is canceled tomorrow due to the novel coronavirus. Over and over again, they relived the same day. It was harder to get out of bed. Their abuelas were scared to go to the grocery store. It seemed like it would never end. The summer of COVID-19 started early and had no expiration date. School kept on going, except it was on laptops they were given. They even had small rectangles called hotspots that their grandmothers had bravely gone out to retrieve from their school. They would not let them take the devices out without an adult to sign for them. These small devices were important. They would help them stay connected to their teachers and classmates. Weeks later, they still had never uttered a word to each other, until Señorita Jimenez posted an assignment. Write a friendly letter to a neighbor. Señorita Jimenez video chatted with Cecilia's class. Cecilia, now that you've watched me write a friendly letter, what's your next step? Señorita Jimenez said with a smile. I guess I have to pick a neighbor, Cecilia said unsure. Yes, doesn't JaSiyah live near you? He was in my class last year. How about him? She said. Okay, Cecilia said, unsure. So Cecilia began to write a friendly letter to JaSiyah. She didn't know much about him. What do I know about him? She asked herself. She knew that he lived with his grandmother, and she lived with her abuela. She would start with that. When she was done, she took a picture of it with her laptop and sent it to Señorita Jimenez. It had all the makings of a friendly letter. Heading, greeting, body, closing, and even a fancy signature written in cursive, just like Señorita Jimenez had shown her. And once it was uploaded, she walked over to JaSiyah's apartment to hand him the paper copy. She knocked. Hey, it's Cecilia. My teacher told me to write you a friendly letter. He did not open the door, for his grandmother had told him to be careful because of the virus. So where is it? He said through the door. I have it here in my hand. Give me a sec, Cecilia said. She quickly opened the paper and leaned with a slant on the door. She took a pencil out from behind her ear and drew a stick figure of JaSiyah. She folded it carefully so the creases would match. Here, she said loudly, and she left. A couple of days passed, and Cecilia was getting bored. Abuela no longer left the house and was trying to get Cecilia to learn how to knit. But Cecilia would do it all day in between virtual lessons instead. When suddenly, without a warning, the doorbell rang. Abuela was about to get up, but Cecilia stopped her. No, abuelita, está bien. I will ask who it is, Cecilia said gently. Recuerda, no abras la puerta. La corona 19, her grandmother said. Sí, abuelita, I know not to open the door. If you got sick, what would I do without you? She half said to herself with a twinge of despair. Hey, it's me, JaSiyah. I wanted to tell you that I really like your drawing. It's all right for a stick figure. JaSiyah said this as nonchalantly as he could, leaning on the closed door. Oh, I'm happy you liked it, Cecilia said through the door. So, hey, I wrote you a letter and I wanted to give it to you, so here, he said, embarrassed. He slipped it under the door and he ran back to his apartment. ¿Quién era, hijita? Cecilia's abuela asked. Oh, it's JaSiyah, the boy who lives in D7, she said. ¿Necesitan algo? Her abuela asked. No, he doesn't need nothing, I mean anything, Cecilia told her grandmother with the letter in her hand. She ran to her room that she shared with two of her cousins and her older sister. They were all on their laptops with headphones on in different parts of the room. It looked like an office in a commercial with too many people sitting right on top of each other. No social distancing in this house, thought Cecilia. Sometimes she wished she could be 6 feet away from everyone, except Abuelita. She decided to go outside on the balcony. It was small and had all their laundry drying on the line, but at least she could be alone. There she sat with her hands stretched out towards the sun, holding the letter tight just in case there was a strong breeze. She opened the letter and suddenly she was no longer at home in quarantine with her two cousins and older sister. She didn't have to worry about getting groceries or having enough money to pay for rent. She didn't have to think about how Abuelita couldn't go to work at the laundromat or that her tío was out of construction work. All she saw was a simple universe, one with less dimensions, less to worry about, no COVID, no worries. There she was with JaSiyah, swinging at the park, eating a popsicle stick. She could taste the sour berry flavor and could feel the cold on her brown, slender fingers. She never wanted to leave. But Graciela came prancing in on her tiptoes to tell her it was time to go to the groceries. It was her turn to walk to the store with her older sister Daniela. They had all agreed that they wouldn't let Abuela go. They all took turns going with Danny, and it was hers. So she stood up and got the mask and gloves Abuela had made out of old polyester blankets and went to the door. And this is how it went. For weeks, JaSiyah would draw stick figures of him and Cecilia doing common things and sometimes more extraordinary things. One picture depicted them underwater scuba diving near a reef, a large barracuda in the background. And Cecilia would respond in kind. One drawing showed them on top of Mount Rushmore. She had read an article about it during a virtual lesson. Another was of them making tortillas and eating refried beans together. She knew his sense of humor by now, and this one pictured JaSiyah ripping an enormous fart. Toot, she captioned it. She could hear JaSiyah laughing as he walked away from her apartment door. Then one day, JaSiyah came to the door and told her that he was leaving for a couple days. He was going to stay with his mother. His last drawing before he left was of them on their first airplane ride. They each had a mask on, but still had smiles on their faces. Cecilia could tell by the way he'd drawn their eyes squinting. At the bottom of the page, JaSiyah wrote, "This will be us soon." Cecilia cried that night. She cried as she held the drawing to her chest. She got the drawing a little wet and decided it was time to stop. Abuela always said, "Ocúpate, no preocúpate, hijita. Piensa en las cosas buenas." Staying busy and thinking of all the good things in her life is what she was about to do. So she stood from her king-size bed, where all 5 of her relatives slept. She crept to the balcony and started to draw. In this drawing, she drew a picture of JaSiyah returning to her door with a new drawing. It wouldn't be long, she thought. And when she was done, she walked back to bed and fell asleep. 2 days passed, and her drawing came true. The end.